Hello and welcome back to Biology Weekly after a long gap. This year we'll talk about some really cool biological phenomenon in this channel. In the olden days, in fact, you don't have to go that far, even in the 20th century, people living near some beaches would see some glowing footprints and they would get scared and amused because it was so beautiful. Every time they walked or put their hand or feet on the sand, it would suddenly start glowing. They would see this phenomenon and think of it as alien footprints or glowing sand, or they also wondered if some ghost was following them. They also noticed that in the sand area that was wet, they could find these glowing patterns. And the sand where it was dry, they could not see any glowing patterns. If your thought goes like, oh, the glowing should then be connected to the water and not the sand, then you're on the right track. Something about these waters make the water and the sand that it touches to glow. This phenomenon was not properly understood until organisms called zooplanktons and phytoplanktons were properly studied and researched. And most importantly, until scientists discovered something called bioluminescence. And in this episode, that is what we're going to talk about. Bioluminescence. And as you can see in this picture here, taken at Preservation Bay in Tasmania, this blue glowing pattern is actually caused by billions of plankton cells. This organism we find here is called Noctiluca scintillans. Noctiluca in Latin means night light, and true to its name, it's pink algae during the day, and at night it causes the sea to sparkle. Remember that beautiful scene from the Malayalam movie Kumbalangi Nights, where this guy asks his brother to take his girlfriend to the water and show her this beautiful blue light? That is what the locals there call as kavara, and it is nothing but bioluminescence. If you look at the description below this video, you can find more links of sightings that are seen across this globe. Here you can see many pictures from across the globe that show this phenomenon of bioluminescence in the beach water. And all this is not caused by one single species, it is all caused by different organisms. So there are many organisms in this world that can cause bioluminescence, and even in the water, there are many species that can cause bioluminescence like this. So in the Japanese coastline, as you can see in the first picture here, we see these sea fireflies, or the biological name is Vargula hildendorfi. These causes these beautiful patterns on the rocks in the Japanese coastline. They come out at night to feed, and during the day they are hidden inside the sand. In the Indian Ocean also, such as in the Maldives Islands, we see creatures called ostracod. These are basically crustaceans, and their light is stronger than the plankton's light. And another example is in California, where in the San Diego beach, you can see this red algae called Lingoldinium polydrum. This blooms every alternate year, and when this blooms, the beaches are red during the day, and at night, the beaches are sparkling. In the link below, you can see a fun, beautiful video taken in a beach in Australia, where this lady goes around walking and touching the water, and then this beautiful light shows, and you can enjoy that video too. And this sighting basically of these different species are not seen all around the year. So take the example of this Noctiluca scintillans. And you can see that in different regions across the globe, you can only see them in some months of the year, and not even every year. They only sometimes come every alternate year or every 2 year. This is because this has to do with the life history of the species itself. Every species, humans, rabbits, plants, we all reproduce and grow in different timings. Likewise, the organisms that cause bioluminescence also, they also bloom and reproduce in different times. So if you are at the right spot at the right time, then you can be lucky enough to see this. What is the mechanism of this bioluminescence? So organisms have different ways to attract mates or for self-protection. Many creatures use bioluminescence to find mates or to attract or distract a prey. A common example we know is that of fireflies. So this light is produced because of a chemical reaction. Luciferin is basically a group of chemicals that are unstable when they are exposed to oxygen. Luciferin means light producing or produced by light, and Lucifer is also the other name of devil. So it's a very interesting root word or etymology that we can also see here. Anyway, this luciferin chemical, when because they have it, these organisms, when exposed to air, they release light. And if you want to look further into how, when exposed to oxygen, they release light, this you can go back to physical chemistry. And if you remember, when atoms go from one energy state to another energy state, they either release or absorb energy based on whether they're going from an upper state to a lower state, or from a lower state to an upper state. And this release of energy or absorption of energy can sometimes be visible to the human eye as well. Based on the wavelength of this energy, we see different colors. If you remember this old chemistry lab tests that we used to do in school with this Bunsen burner called the flame test, a teacher would give us different chemical samples in our hand and ask us to burn them in the Bunsen burner. And based on the color of the light that is emitted, we can guess what chemical it is. So the same concept basically. So this way, different bioluminescent organisms emit different kinds of light. And in this bioluminescence, there is also an enzyme called luciferase that acts as a catalyst or to speed up the reaction to ensure that the reaction happens fast enough to produce a noticeable glow. That's why as soon as you touch this organism, they emit the light. And the evolutionary aspect is also very interesting. These species do not produce too much heat or too much ultraviolet radiation, and they do not waste their energy. They have adapted to produce just enough light to get noticed. That is why you see lights basically in the narrow range of blue, green, and so on. Some bacteria also exhibit bioluminescence. However, we know that bacteria reproduce asexually. They do not reproduce sexually, so they do not need to find a mate. So in that case, then why do they emit light? Scientists hypothesize and research that they use this glow as a form of self-defense. The light makes them more visible to creatures that might eat them, yes, but it is so powerful light that it can also attract the predators that are higher up in the food chain. So the creatures that can eat the bacteria might also themselves get eaten by their own predators. So these organisms glow only when touched because they do not want to waste their energy at all times, but only when they come in contact with something else. Let us now go back to the question of why people saw the glowing footprints only in the wet sand and not the dry sand. As you might have guessed, yes, this is because the water waves contain this bioluminescent organisms, and when the waves splash on the sand or come on the sand or rocks, then they deposit this bioluminescent organisms on the sand or on the rocks, and when we walk or touch them, these species emit the light. Thanks for watching the video. And please do like, share and subscribe. If you would like us to talk about more biology topics, then please write it in the comments. Thank you.